Hi, my name is Hazel Dihidia, and today I will be discussing the next part of our discussion, which is all about thematic relevance. As we all know, thematic relevance is the stories, themes that exhibiting as true and incorporated the ideas that appears repeatedly or dominates a piece of literature. And in this case, we have Oedipus the King, written by Sophocles.
Now, before diving into the thematic relevance, it is important to first discuss the historical context, which is the situations that influence the event we see happen during that time. Historical context. Oedipus the King was written around 420 BC, has long been regarded not only as his finest play, but also as the purest and most powerful expression of the Greek tragic drama. It is because it was understood that Sophocles wrote the Oedipus plays at the period when Athens was fighting for its existence against disruptive forces both inside and outside the city state. This is also attributed to the splendor and the strength of the vast Athenian state were beginning the exhibit the first indication of disintegration near the close of Sophocles' life. As a result, he integrates both glorious reign of Theseus, the founder and the hero of Athens, and the horrible struggles that occurred among Greece nations state into his play like this Oedipus the King. Now, going back to the thematic relevance, there are several themes that we could get from the play. However, most vivid themes are that of fate versus free will, willful ignorance, power, and justice. So, let us start with the most prevalent theme, which is the contraction of fate and free will. These two can be seen in our story of Oedipus. The fate versus free will. Fate is defined as the progression of events beyond a person's own control as dictated by supernatural power. This means that if a person is fated to do something or be something, that entails that there is a divine intervention or something of a divine force na nagdedetermine ng gagawin ng isang tao. Free will, on the other hand, means that the person has their own will or pagkukusa or simply following their own will. This is all. This is also the reason. This is also the main reason. Nagiging debatable kung may freedom ba talaga ang tao or we just follow our fate. Kasi in Oedipus, both of these are seen. However, fate is much surfacing. The first part of the play seems like Oedipus has full freedom or meron siyang free will in doing or deciding what he wants. And this is also similar to what Jocasta, his mother, and his wife did. They attempted together with his um, former husband, who is Laius, who also attempted to manipulate their who to manipulate his son's their fate, in order to prove that the oracle will not happen. I mean, she and together with her husband Laius, former husband Laius, were able to plan to contrast their fate through abandoning their son, and umabot pa sa point na they even pierced and bound his feet first before that. So ayun, 'di ba? Reason why that is the main reason why he has swollen foot. He is called swell foot. Oedipus is called the swollen foot. Ayun, that is the most impactful way of Laius and Jocasta in contrasting the fate that the oracle said that will happen. However, they are not successful about it. Although at some point we can say that Sophocles has placed Oedipus in a dangerous uncertain situation na kung saan his fate lies on his hand, which means that that Sophocles were able to give Oedipus his fate. However, he has free will to avoid any circumstances that arise against him o that arise him o pwede niya yun i-prevent by acting accordingly kasi he has both the character and opportunities na dapat sana magpe-prevent sa kanya to follow that oracle. And however, he was not successful about it. Still, in this case, we can see that there is fate versus free will. And to what happened? Fate won. Ayun nga, but gradually, when truth is revealed during that take, when disasters happened in their place, there fires, there are famines, and the plague itself, Oedipus then accept his fate by saying, Apollo told me once, it is my fate. Therefore, these themes actually say that there is an inevitability of oracular predictions that occur in Greek tragedies, like this Oedipus the king. At some point, this is present in our today's world. How? Simply through the inculcated belief that many revolves around superstitious being, that we tend to say, bahala na ang Diyos. That only means that we really are the epitomes of belief of faith. Simply that because we are a Christian country. And we tend to believe that everything happens for a reason. Like when negative things happen, when everything is out of control, we tend to say that is God's plan. That is God's plan, or just to cover up anything. We tend to say to a friend, or for example, a friend who suffers, who lost her loved ones, we tend to say, you just follow the God's will. I mean that is so insensitive, but in reality we tend to say that we ought to say things na I think na mag-leave ng positive impact, which is not true naman kasi parang insensitive talaga yun in some way. Kaya yun, I think na naman that is one of the negative aspect of the Filipinos in our approach towards something na we are not certain, na we sometimes come to point na pinapaubayan na lang natin sa kanya. O kung sino man yung supernatural being, and we tend to not do something na ayon sa sinasabi niya. Like following the famous lines na sinasabi ng mga Pilipino, nasa Diyos ang awa, pero nasa tao ang gawa, which is different naman sa ginawa ni Oedipus and his family in contrasting fate. But they failed to do so. We can see that, like the characters in the story, we make significant changes. We people make significant changes in our lives, and sometimes we also played, but like Oedipus, we tend to accept our fate. But then we still make a way to do something to make our life better. The next theme found in the Oedipus the King is that the willful ignorance. Willful ignorance happens for both Oedipus and Jocasta, and their ignorance of the truth. This happens when they stay blind to the consequences of their actions. Also, at some point, it was due to his ignorance, to Oedipus' ignorance of the truth, that he killed his father and his mother and is the ones he married. This is an example of the willful ignorance, because a person who is Oedipus and Jocasta are unconsciously seek to avoid liability for the said act. This happens when Oedipus tried to even lash out to Crayon, that nagsasabi na baka niloloko mo lang kami. Baka you're trying to fool me lang. And that is an act of ignoring the truth, na even he himself is gradually knowing na siya naman talaga. They tend to pretend, they suppress the truth due to their ignorance of it. This is sometimes contradicting, no? Kasi Tiresias, on the other hand, the blind prophet, can see things even though he is physically blind. He interprets the oracle of Delphi and tells the solution. Contrary to what Oedipus and Jocasta are facing during that time, Tiresias, who is blind physically, knows something, who is not ignorant of the truth, and even provide us the solution of what is happening to their place, who is experiencing a lot of disastrous events. Contrary to Tiresias, who has the knowledge, who does not let the ignorance surface him, is that of Oedipus and Jocasta, who ignore the truth. Also, another example of ignorance is that of Creon, who does not want to run the place due to his ignorance. Why? Ignorance because he said na kaya ko naman na makuha lahat ng benefits ngayon. Ngayon kapatid ko yung reyna and such. Kaya why would I put myself into something na di ko kaya and mahirap yung parang responsibilities of a king. It is something to be deemed as ignorance because he knows that he is the only person in the family who are eligible to run the place, but he chose not. This is also seen in today's world, as we people tend to make judgments and decisions out of ignorance. One thing I remember is that what I have heard from a telenovela, that protagonist who has a cheating husband and a mistress which she didn't know. She specifically says na it is okay, it's much better kasi mas mabuti nang wala akong alam. O kaya naman yung point na she says na basta wag sa harapan ko. Wag sila maghalandian I'm sorry. But that is what she says. Wag sila dito sa harapan ko kasi magkakapatayan na lang. And through this scenario, I realized that true enough, people actually ignore the truth for various purposes. It may be because they do not want to be hurt, like those what happened to, like those what the protagonist feels, and of course, the second purpose is that They do not want to face the consequences that awaits after they left the cave of ignorance. Most of the time, people ignore the truth because they cannot handle it. Similar to what Oedipus do. Oedipus and Jocasta do. They tend to suppress the truth. They tend to ignore the truth. They tend to ignore that they are married to each other even though they are family connected. They are family. And that is a theme. So moving on, another theme is that of the very evident in today's world. Especially we are nearing the national elections, as to which every individual or politicians are vying for a positions. To what? Of course, to gain power. The next theme is that of power. We see that power is not inherently wrong, as it allows people to influence others, but today, power corrupts men. The character of Oedipus in play, Oedipus the King, exemplifies this. He's the main reason. He is an epitome of power that corrupts men. His word convey power over Creon and Delphi. He also wields power by compelling Tiresias and the shepherd to reveal the truth about the infant he was giving to toss into the mountain. And all this happening, we can say that the power held by Oedipus actually makes him some sort of prostituting it. To some point that he shouts, he tends to abuse it. He tends to simply, we can say na he tends to corrupts his power. He tends to be corrupted by his power. Na he tend to make things worse. He tend to abuse it. He tend to abuse those people na influensyahan niya. Similar to what I have said, the power in our country became very prostituted to the extent that people tend to vie for a position for them to have it. Similar to that of Oedipus' way of holding his power, these politicians sometimes uses this power for them to have an axe to grind, or simply their selfish reason. May it be for money, and of course for the connections. Na kung minsan nga, they sometimes violates human rights or the rights the rights given to every humans. That mainly aims for our equality, freedom, and of course the most important, justice. So going to the next part, the justice. Justice is one of the themes found in the story Oedipus. The absence of justice is primarily when Oedipus was able to discover how he was and his past. It is by then he was unable to administer justice. He even accuses Creon of conspiring against him and all. But then we could also acknowledge that when the bitter truth is revealed, Oedipus takes the punishment upon himself. Although it seems like a bit harsh to him, who was not aware of their parents' truth or the course, he still are able to provide justice in this part. True enough naman, di ba, that ang tragic talaga ng story ni Oedipus, that he came to the point na he didn't know his past. He didn't know that he didn't know about his parents' truth and about the oracle, but he still, on the last part, he still managed to stand up to be brave enough to provide justice in that part. And I think this is one of the character of Oedipus that makes him a king who is characterized through his bravery, through his strong sense of justice, who face the consequences of his actions. How is this seen in today's world? Or nakikita pa ba natin ito ngayon? O meron pa ba tayong justice? Of course, meron. Of course, may justice pa rin. However, as I sometimes both envy and are happy that justice in Greece is different from ours. Envious because the justice is served right on that moment, on that nagkakasala siya, and that momentum. This is like what happened to Oedipus when he already gives justice to what he did on that point. But since most of the times innocents are taken into framed, kaya I am some point happy that the justice still in our country follows the due process of law, which prevents innocent people to be convicted for the act they did not commit. So these two, the difference of justice between Greece and Philippines in our country is sometimes can be a source of various things that are important in our today's world. So overall, the tragedies may have a greater purpose through these given themes, that of faith versus free will, willful ignorance, power, and justice. May it be indirect or direct, because this story of Oedipus are effective instrument or a tool for teaching a good behavior and the taking accountability of the actions or the consequences of what occurs when one does not do the right, like the Oedipus, who in our recent world, who does not follow the general religious approbation. And I think that would be all for the play Oedipus. Thank you for listening and have a good day ahead.